Yeah, me, I like
Oh, yeah.
something
Yep.
so.
Okay.
This my African hands, them gon' love
Yeah.
you.
Let's.
Yeah. My African lips, them gon'
Yeah.
kiss you. Whoa. My African hips get down to you. Whoa. My African legs, them gon' prance to you. Whether you come here to break dance, I mean you come here to shake hands. You come here to make plans. Everybody reaches motherland. Whether you come here to rock with me.
Hello, everybody. How is it going?
Yeah, we're great.
Yeah? I hope you like the song. And what we wanted is have a nice song to kind of set up the mood and make sure that we are also here to celebrate and to actually applaud all the talents that are here in the room today. So let's start with actually applauding yourself because, yeah, you are the African icons that we want to celebrate today. So, my name is Olivia, and I manage comms at Facebook for Francophone Africa. And it's my pleasure to actually host this panel discussion today with brilliant minds from different parts of the continent. So today we are going to be with Tade from Nigeria, with Valerie from Ghana, with Lebo from South Africa, and with Mylene from Benin. So, so the whole point of the conversation that we're going to have today is basically to let them share their experience with us and walk us through their journey and maybe try to see, identify what are the challenges that we are facing as young people in this continent, and also what are the solutions that we can come up with. So let's start with maybe small introductions. Maybe you, Tade, tell us who you are and what you do.
Okay, hi, I'm Tade Ajiboye. I make games, mobile games and PC games, and I also create virtual reality solutions. I'm also the founder of Project Move, which is a peripheral to increase the capabilities of mobile-driven virtual reality systems.
Welcome.
So, can you repeat after me? One house,
One house,
one toilet,
one toilet,
one house,
one house,
one toilet.
one toilet.
So I used to be in investment banking, and now I sell toilets. I'm the founder of a social enterprise called Sama Sama, and we are now operational across all of the northern regions of Ghana. And as of last week, we're also operational in the Ashanti region and Volta region. We designed a sanitation solution for rural communities. We're engaging young enterprises, and we're selling door to door to accelerate Ghana's sanitation coverage. My personal passion is using business to address social change, and my experience at building businesses in sanitation has also led me to become the founder of Solar Taxi, which is also a renewable energy mobility company here in Ghana. Thank you.
Thank you, Valerie.
Hi everyone, my name is Lebo Lion, and that's kind of like my alter ego. Like how Beyonce has Sasha Fierce, I have Lebo Lion. My full name is actually Libuwani Neforobodwe, and I'm from South Africa. And I have a podcast called Lessons with Lion. And the reason why I started this podcast was because I felt like there was a gap between small businesses and corporates, and the gap was information. So I felt like small businesses really needed information that consultants could give them, but they couldn't afford the consultants. So I thought, let me be a digital philanthropist and start a podcast where I give you this information for free, and you can implement it in your business so that you can approach corporates and they'll take you seriously. You know, you improve your value proposition, et cetera, et cetera. And so that's what my podcast is, Lessons with Lion. And it's basically a handbook. It's not like I'm interviewing people or anything like that. It's literally a handbook. You will sit in your office and listen to it and implement what I talk about in the podcast. I also have my own agency. It's called Beeple, and we're interested in the synergy between brands and people, specifically influencers, because we're really passionate about digital and technologies like Facebook, like Twitter, like Snapchat. All of those things, we're interested in that, and we're just interested in how do people have conversations on those platforms? How do we create African narratives, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, that's what I do. And before I used to have a tech company that made tablets and applications. So yeah, thank you.
Welcome, Lebo. Thank you for being here.
Hi everyone. So my name is Mylene Flicka. I come from Benin, and my mission is to create opportunities for African talents. The thing is that we as young Africans, we don't have role models who live the life that we live, who live in the society and have the same challenge as us. My work is to tell the story of those African talents and also to give them a platform to express their talents, to find jobs, to grow their businesses, and then to become the Irao, that means star that they are. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you to all of you for being with us today. So let's kick off this conversation with something that Kojo has touched a little bit upon earlier. He mentioned that Africa actually has the more people aged under 20 than anywhere in the world. And by 2025, we'll have more than 600 million people in the continent that will be under the age of 24. Maybe you, Valerie, can you tell us what those figures inspire you?
I think it's beyond inspiring in terms of statistics, but the African youth, we have the power to transform the economic productivity of not just the continent, but the world. And I think it's important those statistics also focus on just African youth on the continent. I'm an imported Ghanaian, so I think it's also important to recognize that Africans are also everywhere and changing the dynamics of markets.
True.
I think if we're looking at the future and our impact as a powerful workforce, we have a huge contribution to make. But I think it's also important that we don't neglect the contribution as consumers. I think that the content of the world will have to start including us. We are now more connected because of technology. So from a perspective of having a voice, demanding more of our governance, the youth really will be driving that transition. So for me, I'm excited about the fact that we have such a potential opportunity to really leverage what is almost now an invisible workforce and rebrand ourselves and to really make an impact across the world.
Yeah. So I think that when we look at, for example, the numbers and the fact that, yes, Africa is going to be the continent with the more young people in the world, what is interesting to notice is that as the rest of the world is aging, Africa is actually getting younger and younger. So it means that not only we are the future of this continent, but we are actually the future of the world. Yeah. And it comes with a huge responsibility, and I think that what I want to ask you is, do you feel like these numbers, the power that we have in numbers, actually reflect in terms of the place that we are given as young people in the society? Do you think that the youth is a knowledge in the continent, and that we give us that the society or the policymakers give us the place that we actually deserve?
I think for now, the young question is still like a political way to drain people. I think they does not see how young people are really bringing some change to the society. Then the thing is that when you are young people, you are doing something, people expect you not to have expectation about the money. You can do a work, but they don't put value on your work. They say that you're young, you don't have family charge, why would you charge this amount of thing? And it goes in every sector. What I think we need to do is to show young people, young talent who are doing something great. Like this event is showcasing African icons of change. So we need to tell more story about youth impact, and then people will see that the young people of Africa can be a real asset for the development.
Yeah, definitely. And do you think that, like, what do you think, have you identified as the challenges that youth face on the continent?
So you're asking...
Okay, I guess I could say one of the major challenges I've seen, personally, it's our educational system. So aside from the fact that we're not really taught what we're going to use in the workforce, we're also not taught like leadership. We're not trained to actually stand out in the workplace. We're not trained how to create your own business. None of this things are taught in the educational system from where I'm from. I can't speak for the entirety of Africa. And this is a huge challenge because once we're done, I'm a recent graduate, I just graduated last year. Most youths don't know what to do next. So the normal track would be you graduate and then you get hired. But even this track doesn't make much sense because you get hired and then you're put on like some little duties of maybe buying food for people and you're not really doing what you learned in school. And I think this comes into the second challenge where the whole cultural respecting of how you can't be better than your elder in age, and it's used to put youth down. So even if you have the capabilities, you have the skill set, you have the mindset to do great things in the company or the office you're found, you're still going to be put down and told to do menial duties because you haven't earned it yet through age. So I think these are two major challenges youth face.
So what you're saying is that we need to change our culture first and make sure that our culture also leaves room for young people to actually drive impact, right?
Yeah.
Olivia, can I just add to what Tode said? I think he made a really amazing point. And what I've also seen, because I obviously work between like people and big companies, is that especially on the African continent, the people who are leaders in corporate are usually much older. And so they don't know how to talk to us, and we don't know how to talk to them, and they don't understand how we think. And because we've grown up in the social media age and everything happens so quickly, in our minds, we don't have that whole, it takes 1 year to do this and then 10 years to do this, but they see that as like earning your stripes and that kind of thing. And so I feel like the youth and older people just kind of have to come together and have a conversation about how do we speak to each other? How do we understand each other? Where are you guys? Where are we? And how can we put that together, you know? Yeah.
What you're saying is that we're not actually trained to lead. Like we go to school and they teach us some skills, but they're not teaching us to actually be the power of the future.
Well, how can they teach us? Am I being controversial here? I'm being quite honest. Like, how can they teach us if they're not coming from where we're coming from? You know, when they were raised and how they were taught to do things is so different to us. How can they teach us about this future that we don't even know anything about? Because you can't write books about social media right now. It's changing so quickly. Who's going to teach you? You kind of have to teach yourself, you know, in a way. At least that's what I think.
Is there a bias against young people? And the reason I'm asking is that Lebo, I think you were 24 when you started your first company.
Yeah.
And Tade, you were only 19 actually when you introduced your video games to the market. What I'm interested, and I think that what we're all interested in knowing is where the confidence comes from at such a young age to start a business.
For me, I'm sure a lot of you can see that I'm a little bit of a talker and I like to be a bit controversial. So for me, it just comes from being restless. You know, like one of the worst things for me is having to wake up to do something I don't want to do. And I found that in the short time that I was in corporate that I was waking up and I was just so unhappy being in an office, being told what to do, and I just wasn't agreeing with how things were being done. And so for me, it was like, do I stay in corporate and feel imprisoned, or do I take a risk because I've got nothing to lose? I mean, when you're young, you just finished varsity. If you don't have debt, you've got nothing to lose. You don't have children, you don't have anything. Why not? You know? So for me, it was just the restlessness, and that gave me the bravery to live a life that I'm actually proud of and that I want to wake up for, essentially.
And what's your story, Tade?
Well, like you said, I was 19, so I was still in school. I was being catered for by my parents.
Just hold on. So this guy is 19, right? He's 19, he's sitting in his room, and he's like, okay, let me start a business.
Yeah.
And let me develop video games. Like, how amazing is that, honestly?
Yeah, wow.
Go on.
Okay, yes, so one of the major drivers is I kind of always want to be notable. Not just everybody, not the same face. I want to be known for doing good things. So I learned how to make video games a while ago, but then I just always made things that I would play, or a couple of my friends would play. And then I said, okay, this is good, this is a skill I could market, but I should get it out there. And I literally had nothing to lose. So it wasn't a situation where, so I built a game in less than a year. So it wasn't a situation where I like, oh, because I'm spending my time doing this, I'm losing on making money for family or anything. My parents still sent me allowance. I was in school, but I kind of hacked school, so I knew that taking that time out wouldn't affect my grades. So basically, not having anything to lose was a very positive thing, but also having that drive to not just be common also pushed me to want to do this. Yeah.
So be bold and don't be afraid to stand out.
Oh, and one more thing. So my elder brother, it's kind of like a flip side from me. So he didn't really hack school. So because of that, and our parents wanted you to like do well in school, he had to be like an entrepreneur from a very young age. So he built products, he freelanced, he did everything to be awesome. So he's kind of like a role model. So that also pushed me to, oh, if my brother can do this and be such a person, I mean, why am I sleeping? Yeah, there's also that.
There's an African proverb that says that the African race is a rubber ball. The harder you dash it into the ground, the higher it will rise. As you each look back on your own journey, can you tell us about the challenges that you have faced as young people? Maybe you, Mylene, can you tell us about your story?
Okay. I started, when I was really young. I was 18 at that time too, and I just graduated from international relation. So when my mother asked me, "Are you looking for the internship?" I was always telling her yes. But I was lying. I was not looking for an internship. I was not interested at all in diplomacy because I did an internship there and I was like, I don't want to wake up every day like you and be bored as hell. So, so I was lying because I was ashamed of what I was doing because it does not generate immediate revenue. So the thing is that when you are young and you started following your dreams are not making money for you now. So how do you explain that to the parents who are looking for immediate result? You just graduated, you need to be hired, or you need to do something like internship and all those stuff. So there is one challenge about telling your parent that you want to follow your dream and then understanding that you will follow your dream. The second thing is about the internet connection. In my country, Benin, I was living there at that time. The internet connection is really expensive, and then now last year they increased the price.
Yeah,
so,
and that's still one of the challenges that we're facing on the
continent.
continent.
So I think this guy does not want to help us. So it was really expensive because I need to pay a lot of money in order to get to the internet to use social media. When you are on social media, you need to create a community, so your activity has to be intense.
Yeah.
How do you finance that? How do you tell your parent that all the money they are giving you is going to that Facebook thing there? They don't understand. So this is challenge number 2. The challenge number 3 is about the financement. So I have a media, and the media, it does not have immediate revenue. So I need to finance it. Luckily, I have scholarship, so I took my scholarship to finance Irao, but then the scholarship was finished, so I needed to make money. So I didn't find anyone who believed enough in what we were doing at that time to put money in. And there is a lot of young people like me who has amazing idea, but they are not investable.
So young people, we suffer from lack of infrastructures, lack of money, and also lack of recognition.
I think just to add to that, when I'm thinking of resilience, the first thing that comes to mind is about vision. The thing that's always helped me is I've had a really clear vision of what I've wanted to deliver for my business and the impact that I've wanted that business to create. So I think it's tough being young and having a kind of pressure on yourself because you want things to happen very quickly, but having a really clear sense of vision, getting people to buy into that vision was kind of the first point that helps me build resilience. I think the second thing for me has been around, I know a lot of businesses here are based on like technology, where there's a huge ecosystem for innovation. You can win startup prizes that would at least give you some financial mobility to start your businesses. But for people who want to go into sectors where you need capex, you need investment in assets, there's not that much money actually available. So one challenge that I've seen that I face, but I think a lot of African youth also face is, how do you make yourself investable when your business hasn't even made money yet? So this comes down to a lot of entrepreneurs don't have good accounts, don't get their accounts audited, don't register their businesses early enough. And I think this is one thing that I'm always encouraging young entrepreneurs to do. If you say that you're doing a business, structure it well so that people actually have the right framework to allow them to invest in your vision.
Can I also add to that? I think even in doing that, don't forget to have a story about your brand.
Yeah.
Because you can have all the numbers, you can have everything, but if you can't sell that dream to the investor, what's the point?
Yeah.
You know, that value proposition is important. The story behind your brand, the why is important.
And how do you see social media helping to change the African narrative?
Do you want to take
Okay,
this?
let's see the both side of that question. The first side, I will tell you a story about the time that my team and I, we went to the north of Benin. We were looking for amazing pictures to show the world that our country was amazing, visit Benin, all the stuff. And then we came across a village. We stopped because I tell them, hey, we need to stop. I just see a beautiful village. I think that if we take some picture with the drone from the air, it will be amazing. So we stopped to ask for permission to the village chef. Yeah, and then we discovered that this beautiful village has how can I say, a quote story, because in this village, the people of this village, they does not have electricity, they did not have water. What they were drinking is more like mud.
Yeah.
And then we say, okay, we come here to tell a beautiful story, and then we see this. What can we do? So we make a video to tell the story of this village. The name of this village was Bonuko, and to show the world and tell them what can we do to help this village. But contrary to our expectation, what we faced was comments where people were saying that we are showing the bad side of Africa. We want white people to see that we are living in poverty. We don't have to do that and all this stuff. And the thing is, I think we need to change the narrative of Africa, but we also need to
be honest,
to face the real problem, to change, to solve those problems, because you cannot tell a beautiful story and say to people, hey, come to visit me, and just show them the bright side. We also need to make Africa, how can I say, without sounding like Trump.
But we need to tell the truth, basically, and be authentic.
Exactly. And the other side of that question is the story of that young lady who is 14, and she's African champion of roller skates. And we tell her story on Irao, and then one day she broke her legs. She was practicing, and then she has an accident. And we go to Facebook and we tell the community we need to raise money for her to have a surgery, and also to buy another material for the roller skates thing. And then what happened is that we raised more than, I think, 2,000 euro for that girl. That story would not happen if we did not tell the story of that girl first. People would not raise money and give money to that girl if we did not tell her story first. So then what I will say that changing the narrative by telling positive story is good, but also solving real problem is also the thing to do.
Yeah.
I think I agree with her, and I think the whole point of telling and owning our narrative is so that we can decide how we are portrayed outside. And that's the good and the bad stories. You know, it's not just we're going to own our narrative so we can show all the wonderful things about Africa, but it's also even how like poverty here is shown. It's not the way we see it, and there's no dignity in how it's being shown, you know? So that's why it's important for us to own our narrative and tell our own stories. And I think social media is probably the most powerful platform or tool we can use to tell our stories, because it's so pervasive. And the beautiful thing about social media is you can talk to people who understand you and who understand what you're saying. So even though I've got a large, you know, listenership of people who listen to my podcast, some of them are French and they can't understand what I'm saying. So there's a whole market there for somebody else to talk about marketing for people who speak French. You know what I mean? So I feel like it's very important for us to have our own narratives, not only for the world to see us, but for us to see ourselves. You know, so that we know what Africa is. You know, when you think of America, you think of, I don't know, burgers and whatever. So when you think of Africa, there must also be something that you think of and that you're happy to associate with, no matter where you are in the world.
And I think that Tade, jumping on that, representation is also something that is very important to you. And the reason why I'm saying this is that the video games that you actually developed have a very strong African identity. So whether it's the game itself or the environment that the game is rooted in. And what I want you to tell us is, why does it matter to you to bring African games to global platforms such as iOS or Android?
Okay. So, former Tade didn't really think it mattered. Yeah, so then I just wanted, I never really bought into the idea of creating content that we can all relate to. Because I was just like, if your content is good, it's good. It doesn't have to have a Nigerian theme, or it doesn't have to have an African theme. But following some conversations with my siblings, and one particular conversation with a friend of mine who actually gave me the idea for the first game I put on the iOS, was this is something we can relate to. This is something when they play it, they would enjoy and be like, oh, I understand what is going on here. And aside from them being able to relate to it, even if it goes worldwide, they would now have something to relate to Nigeria as a whole. So they know, oh, Nigerians play this kind of games. Also, we don't really have a lot of representation in games anyway out there. We have a lot of games that are indigenous. We have Kunduz, we have Kolobiti, we have a lot of games that we play here, but nobody knows about them out there. They don't have like digital representation. So the more we that are the only people that can create these games create, the more they are known. So I guess that was more what pushed me to.
Interesting. So I have another African proverb for you guys. If you think you are too small to make a difference, you actually haven't spent the night with a mosquito. So that one thing that you have in common is mentoring. So Valerie, I think that you have mentored, and Tade, you're also a community speaker. Can you tell us what does it mean for you to be a mentor? And why is it important to share your experience?
Yeah. I think it's extremely important for us to share our journeys with other entrepreneurs. It can be very isolating, building a business, getting buy-in for your vision. So I think having other people that you trust in your network to bounce ideas with, and get open and transparent criticism or encouragement when you need it, I think is important. For myself, a lot of the people that I mentor are people looking for specific skills. So how to raise finance, how to structure a business, how to scale in rural communities. So I try and align my mentorship with things that I've gone through so I can do the transfer of skills. I think it's also important to have a continuous impetus around giving back. Because I think we had a discussion earlier around what does success look like for young Africans. And a lot of the times we think that success is having a nice house, having a flashy car. But success is also the network that you move with is rising. Success is also, as your businesses grow and are impactful, investing back in your community. So mentorship for me has also given me an opportunity to meet other young people who are investable, and to start to create that community.
I have a question for Mylene as well. And your platform showcases African talents, right? And what do you think is the importance of having role models to inspire young Africans to actually get involved and make a difference themselves?
Okay. Do you know the first African pilot to do the world tour? Does anyone knows him?
No.
No?
No. You don't know the first African pilot to do the world tour?
World tour, yeah.
Yeah, pilot.
To do a world tour, no.
Yeah, to go around the world.
Her name his name is Ademilola Ojuri, and he says something that I want to share with you. He said that he met young African young child who tell him that you need to be white in order to be a pilot. And then he's the proof that you does not need that. And this is the point about having role models. You know, representation matters. The fact that you see someone with the same story, who live in the same society as you, who face the same challenge as you,
Which is
it
your
helps
age.
you.
With your age as well.
Yeah, it helps you a lot because it helps you sharpen the person you want to be in the future. It helps you see that your dream, you can dream big, you can be an African, you can be from all over the world, you can be black and have an amazing story to share to the world. And also, I think that there is a big difference between having a Steve Jobs who is white as a role model and having a Steve Jobs who is African, Beninese, or he's Ivorian, he's South African as a role model. It helps you to know that your skin, your nationality, and all those stuff does not matter if you want to change the world. And that's what Irao is trying to prove. We are trying to help young Africans have references that are from their own home, their own society.
Can I just add to that?
Of course.
And also something that we need to keep in mind as young Africans is that we have the internet. You have a plethora of mentors. You've got so many mentors to choose from. They don't just have to be people you know. Gary Vee can be your mentor if you want him to be. Anybody can be your mentor. So don't forget to use your digital tools because they're there for you more than a person can be, honestly, like physically there for you. So don't forget to use your digital tools. Yeah.
One last question before we open the floor to questions from the room. And I will ask each of you if you had like one piece of advice to share with us, what would it be? And I'm starting with you, Tade.
I don't know, I would say try to be the best in anything you do. Don't settle for being just not the best or second best or third best. Always aspire to be on top of everybody. Yeah.
I would say try and use your business and your talents to really drive social change. Sometimes it's not the fanciest things that make a huge impact. There are a lot of really day-to-day things that we still need to invest in, and we need the youth and young minds and innovation to really focus on driving that change.
I would say don't be afraid to ask the hard questions. I know for a lot of us as young entrepreneurs, it's hard for us to ask for money or ask for help, or ask for mentorship. So don't be afraid, don't be embarrassed if the person says no and they never want to talk to you again. Just be proud of yourself that you tried. So don't be afraid to ask the hard questions.
I would say two things. One, never stop looking for answers. Because sometimes when you start doing something, you don't know a lot about it. So you need to never give up in finding answer. You need to move ahead. And the second thing will be, don't try to get rid of your fears. Your fears make what you are. And your fears help you to know that you really want that thing. So what I want to say is, get comfortable with the fact that you are afraid and get answer to move ahead. Thanks.
Thank you so much, guys, for sharing such inspiring stories. And now we are going to take a few questions from the room. Who wants to start?
My name is James Odede from Kenya. I run an organization called Lebo, which is...
Karibu.
Asante sana. Yeah, so there is this conversation about Africa's youth is the future. And we should actually focus about that. But I want us to ask ourselves, what is it about our heritage as Africans that can prepare us for the future? Because if you know that you come from a brilliant past and that your ancestors were great people, it can actually be a launching pad for achieving greater things. So has that been part of your journey? And even as we influence the generations that come, what is it about our heritage that the social media of today can help us to reinforce?
Maybe I can start. So my business is called Sama Sama, and the actual name of my business came from something that was from the past of Ghana. So when we spoke to our initial customer base, people said back in the day when Ghana was clean, there were environmental health officers from the government who were really active in communities. They were telling people, clean your areas, clean your gutters, and they were called Nsamines or town council. So we actually leveraged that positive memory of something in our past that resonated across the whole of Ghana to formed the basis of the name of our venture. And I think that's helped because we started in the north, and now as we've grown throughout the country, that name still resonates. It doesn't matter what language it is, everybody has stories. So, yeah.
Okay, for example, my media is named Irawo. Irawo means star in Yoruba. And my desire was to put the heritage of that language ahead. The other stuff is also that as we talk about role models, actual role models for African young people, we also tell the story of those people in the past, like King and like, how can I say, Beyoncé from Benin or Poku from Côte d'Ivoire, to help young people know the story about that, because it gave them pride and it helped them know that they come from an heritage who is also positive and not just all the bad stuff that they talk about in the media.
I think what I love about social media is that it allows communities to come together and tell their stories. People can tell their individual stories. And while it's important for us to, acknowledge our heritage and know where we're from, we must also remember that right now we are making history. And that these are also stories that someone is going to talk about 30 years from now and say, oh, in the past, they sat in the room and they did X, Y, Z. So I really believe that being African is an intrinsic thing. Like, it's just who you are, it's in how you do things. And it's not necessarily just in the names we give things or, the print that we wear. You can see when an African has done something, And it's not as obvious as people want to make it. It's not just, what we wear or how we sound. It's who we are. So don't forget that. Don't get too bogged down in the whole, I want to show that I'm from Africa. No, it will show. Don't relax. It will show.
So, hi, my name is Lebo. So I'm from South Africa. So in South Africa, it's very political. And in Africa as a whole. So my question is more on, I think there's an importance of us being here as African leaders, as a youth also. So we need to think about, there's a few things that we need to think about. Africa has a lot of ideas, but implementation is not there. So in a sense of, let's think about how do we, as icons of change, start together and collaborate and create like a platform where we can work amongst each other. Because it's a problem that I can't work with someone from Ghana. I have to create a visa. I mean, like, for what? I'm in Africa. So those are some of the challenges we are facing. And how do we come together now and stand together and say to us, look, our leaders, the older leaders, they are failing us. Let's be honest. They are failing us, and the future is upon us now, and it's going to be difficult going forward if we are not thinking about these things. So how do we really make it actionable and not necessarily talk shops, just talk about it, and it creates things that are very tangible and saying that this is what we need to do next month, the following month, this
is actually what we need to do today and tomorrow. And that's the very purpose of this event, is to bring you together so that all of you can create your own community, can expand your own network, that all of you can actually be that community, be that network, be a point of contact for each other in any markets you are operating in, so that we actually action this change. And Lebo, since you have the mic, I want you to give us the inspiration to conclude this panel and tell us, where do you see Africa in the next 5 years?
But wait, Olivia, can we answer that first question that he...
Yeah, we can.
And then Casey has a question.
So thank you for that question, Kada. Thank you for being a revolutionary. I actually want to challenge you and say that I think you're being unfair with asking that question, especially in this room, because every single one of you sitting here are doing exactly that. You are saying we don't like how things are being run, and we're making active change. We're doing real things that are changing communities every single day. So I feel like, even though I hear where you're coming from, just by looking in this room, there are already people who are fixing those problems.
So just to maybe, it's maybe a point of correction, but also it's not necessarily saying that I'm undermining what's happening here. It's very important what's happening here. I'm very aware of it. But what I'm saying is that how do we challenge the bigger, like how do we go from here to the next level? Because I mean, like, there's a bigger picture of what Africa should be. And I like how you spoke about changing the narrative of Africa. The first thing when we speak about Africa all over the world, when we think about Africa, it's AIDS. it's poverty. It's all these other things that do not make what Africa, the Africa that we want to be. And we are already living that lifestyle because of the narrative. So how do we constantly, like, we are 40 people here, how many people are in Africa? How do we get, how do I go to Tanzania? How do I go to all these other countries and make very, very impactful change? You know what I mean? I mean, like, this is the time where we need to be very radical because as Africans, we've always been like very soft, People are coming here, we need to take action, comrades.
My name is Martin Beckmora from Nigeria. Mine will be a question and thought very quickly. So while you were speaking, across everything that has been shared today, there has been a great mention about stories of the things that we're doing in Africa, trying to get it out there. And it's something I'm really passionate about because I run a platform called Tales of Nigerians. So I'm a full-time lawyer and then part-time storyteller working for the platform. So what I noticed is that there are so many Nigerians who are doing really great in living their daily lives, but then because they don't do anything, in quotes, stupid, that people feel is what fuels our social media, space. So if it's not stupid, if it's not funny, we're not going to trend it. So, and then it became a problem for me because I felt there are people and there are stories that should be out there that are not being out there. And these are the stories we are talking about here, inspiring things that people are doing. So I started on my own personal page. So I started sharing everyday stories from what I've been doing from the past 1 year. And in about 6 months, I grew my page from just 1,000 followers to about 17,000 followers right now on Facebook. And around January, that inspired me. I set up the Tales of Nigerians page where I go out on the street after work and interview random people who are doing, things. It could be a barber, a baker, and just walk into your shop, introduce myself. So I want to have a picture of you and share what you are doing on the page. And I started around February, and by now we have over 100,000 followers on the page itself. And conversations, we keep on sharing one interview per day. So I go outside, I'm based in Lagos, but then I have people who bring in stories from all parts of Nigeria. And one thing I've noticed is we are very good people, and when we see good things, we push it out. So I am interested in all of these stories, and then I would want to see since you guys have been doing this and gotten to this stage, has there been any government input in any way? Because so far I've been running my platform with, I have my own personal funding because probably I'm from an average home, so I can be able to see some extra dollars to throw around. So, but then there are people who that becomes a problem for them. Started up something like this to scale. They don't have that money and that finance, and they will need the government. So, for some of you, I would want to hear the story of how are you able to, succeed without the government and be able to put something so beautiful as this, so that younger people like us who are out there who don't have the kind of opportunity that we have can learn and be able to scale up before they can get to this stage we are on now. Thank you.
I think it's very interesting that you say we get to this stage. I'm not sure where that stage is. Because I know personally, I think the best equipment or tool to use to produce content is your phone. I mean, I'm in the podcast space, and a lot of people will buy equipment, and they actually just do it for show, because they know when you're sitting on a stage and there are 2 mics and a pop filter, it's dramatic. People think you're very serious. But if you're looking at trends in America, for instance, people are moving away from that. And people are literally recording their podcasts that are getting sponsored by corporates on their phones through various programs like Anchor, for instance. So many celebrities, American celebrities, big ones, have podcasts on Anchor, and they're just using their phones. So people are really trying to migrate away from using equipment and just using what they have, which is their phone. Most of us have phones, it doesn't matter. And when you produce content on your phone, you're probably going to edit it faster and send it out faster than if you had to use equipment and then edit it on the software and then da-da-da-da. So for me, I feel like when you look at us and you think we are somewhere, it's because of the quality of our content and not how we produced it. Because the how doesn't really matter. Nobody can hear the difference. If your content is that good, then they'll listen. So that's what I think.
I have some solution for you. The first one is to build a team around your projects. And to build a team, you need to connect them to the vision so they can volunteer to help you produce content. The second thing is to build a brand. When you build a brand, you're able to create products to sell that brand. I think that Tale of Nigerian can have some stickers, can have some t-shirt to sell. the first thing will be to maybe sponsorize your content, even if you don't feel comfortable with that. Produce content for company. The fourth, that's what you said. The fourth will be you can directly create events that connect people to tell their story, or even do workshop in order to help them tell their story. So we have some solutions for you.
Thank you very much, guys. So, as a conclusion, I want you, in one word only, to tell me where do you see Africa in the next 5 years?
Starting from her.
One word.
That's a hard one.
One word will be 2 words, please.
One.
Upper echelon. Upper echelon.
Upper echelon.
Scene. Yeah.
Scene?
Scene.
I think mine is powerful.
That's good.
Populous.
Thank you so much, guys. And I think that the key word for me from this panel is inspiring. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us.
Thank you. Thank you.